Support for Docs Outside the Box comes from Set for Life Insurance. Set for Life means set for less. Their clients get access to the largest portfolio of discounts and unisex rates available nationwide. Check them out at setforlifeinsurance.com and tell them Dr. Darko sent you.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real live insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
Hey docs, are you looking to learn how to become a physician leader? Then Physician CEO is for you. Physician CEO is an accelerated business immersion program designed for physicians and developed by MBA faculty from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. So learn more at www.physician-ceo.com/DOTB. What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am really excited about this episode because I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. On this episode, it's going to be a hybrid between a strategy session and then a guest interview. And I think it's something that my guest definitely learned something from and something that you all will learn from. So this week, the guest is Dr. Carrie Reynolds. If you haven't heard of her, she is the host of the Hippocratic Hustle podcast. It's a podcast that focuses on women physicians who are finding freedom in life, work, and finances. And I am definitely all for that. And it's something that I recommend that you all subscribe to. So make sure you go ahead and support her. Now, on this episode, we're going to be talking about her recent entrance into the field of locum tenens. She is leaving her employed position and going to be full 1099 and independent contractor. And we're going to hear about why she decided to switch to locums. Also, we're going to hear about how she arrived at her current pay rate. We're also going to hear, and this is really important, how she negotiated with locum tenens companies. This is really important because a lot of you all think that you can't negotiate with them, but there is a lot of room. And after hearing her story, you're going to be like, wow, this is really shocking. So she was able to get a huge bump based off of this tactic that she talks about in this episode. And then at the end, I'm going to share 5 really critical tips that she needs to take before really jumping all into the world of locums. I think you're really going to enjoy this podcast. I think you're going to learn a lot, not just about Dr. Carrie, but also about some of the pitfalls and some of the things that doctors do when they enter into locum tenens. So without further ado, I present Dr. Carrie Reynolds. Dr. Carrie Reynolds from the Hippocratic Hustle podcast. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. What's up? How you doing?
You're so sweet. Thank you, Nee. And I'm talking to a celebrity. You're kidding me?
Me?
You are amazing.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the show. You know, we got a lot to talk about. On this show, we're going to be talking about that locums life, spelled D-A-T, locums life with a Y. Yep. You obviously host a really powerful podcast called Hippocratic Hustle. But on this show, we're going to talk about what you're doing to be outside the box from a clinician standpoint.
Oh my God, Nee, I am living it. I
love it. I can tell the energy. You got it. So look, before we get too much into the nitty gritty, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your podcast, and then let's get into the details.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I host the Hippocratic Hustle podcast. It's a podcast for women physicians. So I interview women physicians who are doing interesting things in and outside of medicine, different ways that we can basically live our lives creatively and our professions creatively, and that we can feel a little bit more whole and complete overall, and just have more, just feel better about our jobs and our lives overall. So, and not only do I interview women, but I also interviewed a few guys. So probably by the time this airs, my interview with you will be out. So
there you go. Equal opportunity. I love it. I love it.
That's right. That's right.
Tell them where they can get your podcast.
Yeah, at hippocratichustle.com or anywhere that you can get a podcast, on
Apple
iTunes.
Podcasts, right?
Apple
iTunes.
Podcasts, that's right. The way that people get it through Android, however that is. I'm an Apple person myself.
However fragmented it is on Android.
That's right. And you can
Drives me
even
nuts.
ask Alexa to play the Hippocratic Hustle podcast, and she will do it for you.
And Google Mini. I did it with mine.
Did you? Awesome.
I did it with mine.
Very cool. I love that.
Well, look, I've listened to your podcast. I really like it. I liken it to Farnoosh Torabi's podcast.
Oh, you're so sweet. That's a big compliment. I love Farnoosh.
Once again, I think it's very important that we have diversity in voices. And I think someone doing something that's directed towards women is something that I think we all can learn from, and that's men and women. So I'm really glad that you are putting out this podcast because it's definitely filling a gap that I think we all need.
Awesome. No, thank you for your podcast. Yeah.
You are currently... Are you still employed or are you?
I am, as of this recording, still gainfully employed at my employer who...
Where do you live?
I live in Denver. Yep. And I'm in private practice, and
Awesome.
I'm pediatric gastroenterology. And I love my employers. I love the owners of our group are wonderful, but definitely with all of the creative endeavors that I have, for sure. I have a lot of them. It's kind of might be a little tedious actually, but with all that stuff going on, working full time and trying to do everything else that I'm trying to do creatively just was not going to work for me. So I really had to explore other ways that I could practice medicine and then also live my life the way I wanted to do it, with freedom, which is my whole shtick.
I'm interested. I'm really interested. I'm going to ask you a question about this. So when did you start realizing that, what you're doing outside of medicine, what you're doing outside of the hospital, that you really needed to, spend more time, give more effort to that, to the point where you're starting to realize that maybe you should pull back on your clinical practice? When did that start?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was exactly a year ago that my podcast launched. So it was about a year and a half ago when I started thinking about doing a podcast. I think I started doing that because I was midway through, well, it was about a year and a half out of fellowship. And I don't know about anybody else, but in medical school and in fellowship and residency, there's always these projects that you're working on. There's you're working on your research papers, you're working on, just different activities and like in exams, there's a ton of exams. So there's always something to do. And when I got into the grind of working in the clinic and my overall, my schedule and everything like that, it got a little boring. I mean, I don't know if...
Sounds familiar.
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I was bored because I was freaking busy and I was just kind of actually, I wasn't overwhelmed with work. I felt like I could do something else. But I was just bored, I guess. And so I started thinking about what I could do. And I mean, to be honest, my husband always said I should do voiceover work. And things like that. And I was like, well, I can't do that. I'm a physician. What would I do?
Self-limiting thoughts already.
Right. I know. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Not sure how to get into that business. But I definitely was listening to Farnoosh Torabi's podcast, and her podcast is just so amazing, but it focused on a lot of people. Of course, they weren't in medicine. So I was thinking, gosh, if I just could interview people who had interesting stories, just like the people she interviewed through medicine, though, and kind of have that as a focus, I think it would be much more interesting to my demographic and to me personally.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's actually what inspired me the most. And so I thought, well, I could do this. And so I started looking into it, listened to all the podcasts on how to be a podcaster. There's a million of those out there. So I listened to all those and realized that I could do this too. So so then I just started doing it. It's kind of funny. I recorded my first episode I recorded was with my best friend. It's actually episode 2. So so you can listen to that second episode. It was the very first one I did. And it was with one of my best friends. And I listened to it when I was done. I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds great. And she was able to tell her story and I was able to get it out. And she was just really excited to be able to share the story of how she started her clinic with everybody. So I knew there was tons of stories out there. So that was my motivation for starting the podcast.
So once you kept going, you started to realize, wow, you can really spend more time doing this, huh? And
oh my God.
Clinical medicine is getting in the way a little bit.
It's like this, stone rolling down. It's just it's out of control. It's like a snowball. the point is that, the more I interviewed people on the podcast, the more I was like, gosh, these people are doing such interesting things. Like, I want to do something interesting too.
I know that feeling. Yep.
I did have the fortune of interviewing Cherie Wiggins. She's one of my guests on the podcast about doing locums. And the whole time I was interviewing her, I was thinking, God, this is so cool. I want to do this. You might even be able to tell that from the recording. I don't know. Right. But so she really got the ball, the thoughts moving and the gears turning in my head. And so that's what got me thinking about how I need to live my life outside the box. And then once you start thinking about...
No pun intended though, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just joking. I joke. There's a pointy joke.
That's a perfect term for what I want to do, too. Exactly. So it's really great you titled your podcast that. But once I got those thoughts going, it was like I could do so much more, and I could help so much more people in all these random, weird ways that I just needed to take more time.
So when did that realization come that the current way in which you're working as an employed PhD doctor, it wasn't going to work anymore? When did you get that eureka moment?
Oh, goodness. I think it might have been, I don't even think it was until after I started talking to the locums folks, because the locums folks are out there and they're always looking for new people. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're trying to catch those people who have those little thoughts in their mind.
Oh, yeah.
I think, so I think it was once I started thinking about it as a true possibility, that's really where I decided to take the leap. It's a big deal. It's scary.
You sometimes, before we recorded this, you mentioned that there was a number that you needed to reach.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that. Was this number what you were getting paid previously, or was this just the number in your mind that you figured, hey, as a locums, I should be able to get this?
Well, yeah, I didn't know what the going rate necessarily was for someone in my profession. Like if I said per hour, how much does someone in my profession get paid? I had no idea. But I knew if I was going to match my salary, plus a little bit more because it's going to be 1099 versus W-2, which I was getting paid. So you have to account for those tax differences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you should get paid more as a 1099 because once the taxes come through and all the deductions come through, you want to make sure that it equals out and you're speaking apples to apples.
Right. So I took that into account and realized how much I need. And also I thought, well, I have a family. I have my husband and my 8-year-old daughter. So I didn't want to be away 100% of the time. I can't do that, obviously. So I had to think about how many weeks would I want to be away, hopefully. Realistically speaking, how many weeks could I be away? And how much would I need to make that, a possibility? Because I definitely can't go down in salary. I have student loans to pay. I'm still working, slogging through that whole thing. Mm-hmm. We have retirement funds that we're behind on. So the whole point of this is to help boost our overall, income for my household.
So you're normal.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. I can't just
like
quit. I can't just quit. So I figured out how many weeks I wanted to work, and then doing the math, I figured out a number in my head. So, so that was my goal, was to make that much. With locums, it tends to be a per diem, day per day that you get, or a dollar amount that you paid per 8-hour shift. At least in my specialty, that's how it is, with a little bit of extra for call and for overtime. But so then I had a number in my head that was a little bit easier to work with the locums folks.
So that helps a lot, because at least okay, there's a threshold that you absolutely cannot go below, right?
Yeah.
That sets your basement. Tell us, because I know that it got really interesting at that point. Take us through that story. So
okay.
When you finally contacted locums companies and started telling them that you're interested in some of the jobs, take us through that discussion, particularly about, getting a number and realizing that this number didn't really work for you.
Right. So I started talking to one person at one company, just the person who happened to reach out to me first. And so I started talking to her, and she's really nice. And I told her what I wanted to make. And she said, there's no way anybody's going to take that much. That's just far too much. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't really have much reference for that. So I kind of kind of believed her, and I kind of hashed it out with her a little bit, and and she's like, well, I know how much this specialty makes, and I'm peds, so she was relating me to different peds subspecialties and stuff, and I was like, oh, well, it is kind of low. And then to keep me interested, she was kind of sweetening the deal, I guess, a little bit, maybe just playing with the numbers a little bit, because then she was like, okay, well, let's take this base salary for a per diem essentially payment. And then we'll put in a little bit for pager call, and we'll put in a little bit for overtime. And let's assume that you probably will work 1 hour overtime.
So when you say per diem, you're talking about like showing up and providing just like 8 hours of work.
That's right. That's
okay.
right. Yeah.
No call, nothing like that.
Yeah. So there's a base payment for the 8-hour shift that you're working. And then at least in my specialty, there's a pager call fee. So there's a couple hundred amount that's on top of your 8-hour shift, and whether you get called in or not.
That's to hold the pager.
That's to hold the pager.
Hold the pager and take call.
That's
Got you. Okay, righteous. Let's keep moving.
Yeah. And then of course there's overtime, which is kind of cool. But of course I didn't know necessarily if I was going to be so busy that I would need overtime. I've heard other people doing locums tend to have overtime that they're getting, but who knows? I have no idea. But anyway, she made the assumption that, well, maybe I'll work an hour or two overtime every day, and then it would come sort of kind of close to the number that I wanted. Sort of kind of. It wasn't quite all the way there.
So how'd you feel about that, knowing that
oh gosh,
this
well,
is below your threshold?
It was close. And so then when I was crunching the numbers, and I had already started thinking about it, like, gosh, I could quit my job in like 3 months. Like, how awesome would that be? So it was really tempting, because at that point I was like, I could just quit. This is great. Anyway, when I crunched the numbers, I was like, ooh, I'm going to come out less than what I'm getting paid now. And
that shouldn't be the case.
No, exactly. And when I did that number crunching, I was just like, I can't do this to my family. It felt more selfish at that point. I can't just, and it's like, yeah, my husband would like to retire tomorrow and do fun things and just, but he can't. He's our primary breadwinner actually. But, so I just can't, I couldn't justify that. The whole point is to pay off my student loans. I mean, that's the whole point. So then I thought, gosh, I'm getting too far deep into this, especially mentally at that point, because I was really getting emotionally attached to like this idea of doing this locums thing. And so I started asking some questions on a Facebook forum. I'll give a shout out to Physician Side Gigs, because gosh, those folks on there were so helpful.
Now, isn't that hosted by a previous guest? I was hosted by Dr. Nisha Mehta. We got to give her props for that. So, a phenomenal group on Facebook. Very large group, right?
Oh, very large group. And I think because there are so many people on that group, it's like an amazing brain trust. It's huge. So
it's like a dynamic FAQ.
No, it's crazy.
Always updating.
It's crazy. And yeah, no, and people, you ask a question and like people answer immediately. So it's really, really great resource. Well, anyway, I asked my question, which was, am I getting ripped off by this lady? Like, she says I should be paid this much, and I'm not. And actually, I should back up.
So you actually put the number that she offered you in the Facebook group?
Yeah, I think I may have actually.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's good to be open about that stuff.
No, I love it. I think that's a great idea, because I'll tell you why. I think that this is just my small little rant. I won't take us too much on a tangent, but I do think the more that physicians and physician colleagues know how much each other makes, I think it's a lot easier to negotiate raises. It's a lot easier to not basically negotiate against, your colleague and stuff. And it happens in other fields. So I think as physicians, we should do that more often, where we let each other know exactly what we make. And I know we're so used to being competitors and stuff, but collaboration in this opportunity or in this situation, I think would benefit everybody and the greater good.
Indeed. And actually, I skipped a little bit of the point of the story, which was how this negotiation stuff works between the locums and the physician and the groups that are trying to get the doctors to come work from, that are using the locums company as a service. So I was contacted by two companies, or by two hospital systems, to interview. And so I interviewed with these folks, and they were really great, really nice people, had great interviews. I could sense the urgency and the kind of desperation, because these folks were definitely in some tough places as far as needing physicians to staff their clinics. And so I could just tell that they needed help, and that they had, that they were a little bit on the desperate side. And so after I was presented to these two folks, the locums lady came back to me and said, okay, great. They both accepted your, your offer. And the way it works with the locums is that you are presented to these hospitals. And there's a little bit of a law that goes into this, that if you are presented to a hospital system, you can't be presented by another company. You have to go through the original company that you started out with. I think it's to keep things clean, more or less, with all these people coming and going. But so I was basically stuck with her presentation at that pay rate that she had, that lowball pay rate, essentially, with these two different hospitals. And I thought, gosh, both of them want me. Like, both of them need my help. Like, when I buy a car, I love buying cars. It's like a hobby of mine. When I buy a car, I mean, I don't buy a lot of cars, but when I do, it's really fun. But anyway.
I get your point. Every 8 years when you get a car, right?
No, that's exactly it. It's exactly it. I'm the one who buys the cars, not my husband. It's fun for me.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Understanding how to run a business in medicine will put you at a unique advantage in the future. Whether it's leading a hospital, practice, or starting a new venture, the Physician CEO program will put you in focus from day one. Physician CEO is an accelerated business immersion program developed by MBA faculty from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. The Physician CEO program provides an intensive MBA-style education made up of modules, with each module covering topics from leadership to entrepreneurial ventures. Because of their individualized structure, each participant leaves the program with their 1, 3, and even 5-year business plan, all designed to function in the real world. If you're a physician who is looking to start your own venture, lead your practice or department, or even start planning for succession out of medicine, then you can't afford to miss this opportunity. Class is filling up. Learn more at www.physician-ceo.com/DOTB.
Anyway, when I buy cars, I go to two different dealerships, and they offer me, the same car and how much they want me to buy it for. And I go with the better price. It's just how it works. And I can kind of, put them against each other a little bit. If I want the certain color, I can kind of get them to kind of just get them to lower the price so I can get the color I want, for example, So, so I thought, well, doesn't it work like that for locums? I mean, I have two people who want to hire me, but like, why can't I negotiate up? Because I really can't take this job at this current rate. I mentally and just the numbers just didn't work. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
And so when I asked her, I said, can we go up on the rate? And can you ask them? Because both of them want me. Can you ask them to go up, like negotiate on my behalf? That's what I thought she was going to do. And so she said, okay, well, I'll go and ask him. And so a couple hours later, she emails me back and she said, no, they're not going to budge. I was like,
which we all know now, most all locums companies for the most part get paid a large amount from the hospital. And then based off of that rate or how much they get paid, they determine how much they're going to pay you.
Right. So it's not about negotiating with those desperate people who are over in the hospitals who need me to work there. It's not about that.
Absolutely. It's negotiating with the actual locums company.
With that lady.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
thanks for sharing that. I love it.
Yeah. So basically it came down to her saying, no, I can't go up on the price. Well, I said, well, I can't take the job. And I walked away.
Stonewalled her. Love it. Yeah.
I totally did. And in the meantime, I did call a couple other locums companies because through that thread, I learned that other companies may have other jobs that she doesn't know about. And she doesn't necessarily know if I told her I was presented to another hospital in that time. And I kind of was, but actually they decided they didn't want any locums, so it didn't go anywhere. And about 2 days later, she came back and she said, oh, they'll take your offer.
Uh-huh.
It's hilarious.
And you're probably just sitting there drinking your tea with your pinky finger up like, yeah, right.
Literally. I was at a coffee shop when I got the email. Hilarious. But, yeah.
So she came back with the rate that you wanted.
Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly. And in the meantime,
how did you feel about that? Like, how did that make you feel that you asked for something and obviously you were really uncomfortable and you stonewalled and you came back with that break?
Well, it's great. I mean, you have to know your worth. I think that's what the most important thing is. Know your worth. Understand what your worth is. Understand that you're, that you don't have to take that deal that they're offering you, and and just wait and see if something else comes up, and don't let anybody push you into something that you don't want. I
love that. That's a great point.
Yeah.
One thing that I made piggyback on that, what you just said, is I think doctors who are listening, who are thinking about doing locums, oftentimes they say, well, lucky you have the time or you have the luxury to do that. I think we all can get to that point if we develop some savings, maybe 3 months or even 6 months of savings or an emergency fund. And the reason I bring that up is that allows us to not be as desperate. So that if there's time to negotiate, you can negotiate, and it may take a month or maybe a little bit longer, but you don't feel like you have to take, the first deal or the first offer that's available to you. You have some time and some cushion to go through that negotiation process with said locums company and maybe even another locums company.
Yeah. Well, that's what I learned is that really there are other companies, and there's rumors that this company pays better than this company. And so I didn't know that at the time. And apparently I went with one of the ones that doesn't pay as well. I don't know how that part
But you
worked.
got your money though. That's awesome.
I got it. That's what I wanted. That's what I needed in order to take the job. And I think ultimately she realized, well, I better just sign this girl up at what she needs or I'm going to lose her totally, which was totally the case. I couldn't do it at the rate that she was offering. So
when do you start?
I start August 6th, hopefully, if all my licensing gets done.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm really excited that you shared this story because I think a lot of doctors can learn a lot about a couple of things. One is, taking a leap and deciding to be a doc outside the box, whether that be creative wise or whether that means clinical wise and working outside of the employed system.
That's right.
I got to give you kudos for that. It's awesome.
Thank you. What came out of this is that, overall, like you're not stuck. Like I wasn't stuck with that deal. I wasn't stuck with, what she was offering. You always have to know what your options are and keep looking for a better way. Even if I had stayed in my job because it wasn't going to work out, I was still going to search out for a way to feel the freedom that I needed.
I love that point. Thanks for sharing that. I really think that's a really good point of saying that doctors are not stuck. We're at the top of the food chain. We have so many different options. You really have to take a moment to breathe and realize, the type of power that we have, not only from a being able to take care of people and treat people, but also, like you said, from a negotiation standpoint.
Yep. Yeah. We bring a ton of almost all of the value, to a hospital system, to an office. Where, you don't have to be an employee, just workhorse. You are somebody and you're not just an employee.
Well, is it okay if I share? I wrote down 5 things that I think will probably help you with your future endeavors with locums, and I think something the audience can learn from. So maybe we could turn a little bit of a strategy session.
I am still learning.
So that's okay if I share with you. So
yes.
I think probably the first thing you should do before you start being a locums is really start to consider starting a business entity, whether being an LLC or a PLLC or even an S Corp. And the reason I bring that up is not just to start one just because you want to start one, but obviously I'm not sure what the litigious rates are in PGI, but just in general as a physician, it's good to separate yourself from your business entity.
Most certainly. Yeah. Right. I do plan on getting a new accountant. It was a recommendation from one of my friends who does locums out of the state. And she recommended making sure that your accountant is aware of what you're doing, that you're working in a lot of different jobs in different states because it can get a little messy with your taxes too. So,
oh yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So I thought that was pretty good for screening questions for an accountant, make sure that they understand, with different states, how that's going to work. So.
Yeah, I think those are good. That's a really good place to start. Also, actually one of the advice I was going to give, actually.
Oh.
The second one, though, is never commingle funds. So if you can find a way that they can pay you as your entity, so whether that be Carrie Reynolds, MD, or Carrie Reynolds, PGI, or something like that, they can pay you as your company name and using your company's EIN number. I think that will definitely benefit you. But obviously, please talk to a tax consultant about that also. But I think in terms of everybody gets worried about if they're going to get audited, if they're going to have a hard time with bookkeeping, I think one of the easiest things that you can do is just to make sure that you don't commingle funds. So whatever you use personally, keep that for personal use. And then whatever you use for your business, whether that's taking a flight out or driving to the airport, keep that separate and then reimburse yourself with the advice of a tax professional. I think that'll definitely help you out. The next thing is what you just said. I think you definitely should get a good tax coach. Please make sure you find a tax coach who looks ahead, who looks forward, not looks back. And as a matter of fact, on episode 36, we had Diane Gardner. If you don't, Dr. Carrie, if you don't have a tax accountant or a tax coach already, I definitely recommend her. She's been great. She's done really good things for Docs Outside the Box, as well as for the locums company that I have, which is called Equal Access Health. But that's just a suggestion that make sure you find a tax coach who is looking forward as opposed to just always
just doing your tax from the year before. Yeah,
that can be pretty painful when they start saying, oh, well, if you had done this and if you had done that, Y, you could have saved yourself X amount of dollars. You're like, well, thanks. Like that doesn't help me now, you know?
Right. No, especially as I'm setting it up right now. So I set it up the right way. For sure.
Absolutely. And if you don't have one already, but I doubt that this is the case with you, but Dr. Carrie, I think obviously getting a CFP, a certified financial planner, hopefully fee only, you know, how we play, how we roll in this world. I would recommend getting one also just so that you can talk to them specifically about SEP IRAs as well as a possible solo 401k.
Right.
So that's something that's really important, and making sure that your CFP talks directly with your tax coach so that you know that you're keeping money in a certain area and that money can go towards your IRAs in the future. So one other thing too is if you're not doing this, if nobody's ever taught you about this, is once you get paid, one good thing that I do that not that many people do is when you get, for example, you get $1,000, it's not going to be taxed. One thing you can do is decide, know mentally as a physician, you're probably going to be in the highest tax bracket. Take that portion out, whether it's the 39% or 40%, put that in a high yield savings account. And you can find high yield saving accounts on, magnifymoney.com. But a high yield savings account is just an online bank account that gives you higher than what a brick and mortar bank would give. And put your money in there, as well as take out 15% or maybe a little bit more and put that in another high yield savings account and use that for your IRA. And then when it's time to make those contributions, every quarter or maybe once a year, you would already built some interest in there. So it'll be a good way to get some cash there also. Right. And then the last but not least is don't go back. Don't go back. That's so funny. Don't go back. Actually, I wrote it down. It's don't effing go back, but there may be some children listening to this. But don't go back, Dr. Carrie. I think what you're doing is it's great, but just remember it's going to be like jumping off a cliff maybe, and maybe some bumps and some bruises, but your parachute will open. You will develop wings along the way. So that's awesome. I'm here to help you out. There's so many people out there to help you out, but don't go back. I think you will really, really enjoy working for yourself.
I have a feeling that exactly. People ask me, oh, are you going to do it forever? And I'm like, I don't know, but I have a feeling it could be a great way to go. So,
yeah, I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be great mentally for you. I think it's going to release those creative juices more because you have more time. And I think there's something to be said about being a small business, so that when you get stressed, particularly I tell this to a lot of doctors who get stressed, there's a different type of stress when you know that you're getting paid as a business as opposed to being a salaried employee and they're asking for more, right? You feel like you're really actually providing a service and it represents you as a company, right? So whatever the name of my company is, when they ask me to do more and I'm tired, I'm saying, you know what? I'll do it because I know that my company in general is going to look better for the hospital as opposed to, them taking advantage of me because I was salaried. So it's a mental trick, but
right.
it makes me feel better as a small business owner.
Yeah, because you're getting a little bit of that thanks, especially directly to your business, for sure.
Absolutely. But Dr. Carrie, this was excellent. I really appreciate you sharing this and being honest about this. I think a lot of doctors are going to learn from this. And you already know a lot of doctors don't negotiate, don't stonewall, and they don't know about the different options that are available electronically to them, like the physician side gigs, Facebook group, as well as your podcast and my podcast. The other great podcasts.
Great resources. Yeah. I think if people aren't on Facebook, you should consider it. And if you're a physician, there's so many groups on Facebook that are so supportive for so many different things. So a lot of things have really exploded. And I think not everybody knows about that, but there's support groups for everything you could possibly imagine for physicians. So definitely check that out for sure.
Awesome. This was great. So once again, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, as well as where they can listen to your show at.
Awesome. Well, you can find my show anywhere that you listen to podcasts, especially Apple Podcasts. Let's see, you can get a hold of me at Carrie, that's Carrie, at hippocratichustle.com, or at my website, hippocratichustle.com.